Hi, welcome back. Today we are practicing Ashtanga Yoga. In this practice for today, we are doing a lot of forward folds. So this will be a less intense version of Ashtanga. So if that's something that interests you, find some comfy clothes and hop on your mat. We'll start in a standing position. Okay, so as always, Ashtanga starts with a sun salutation. So we're going to do our sun salutation A's. I won't talk a whole lot through this because it is not an advanced practice, but it is a practice for people who are already familiar with yoga. If that's not you, you could always look back at my Hatha videos, or you could go ahead and try along with me anyway. I won't know, so good luck. Okay, so to start things off, we're going to come into our standing pose. Hands over heart. Let's just jump right into it. Swing your hands up and over. On your inhale, exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, chaturanga. You could jump or step back. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And now we stay here for 5 breaths. Letting your heels sink more into the mat. Make sure your shoulders are aligned. Let your head hang heavy. And just enjoy this first down dog of the practice. Okay, after 5 breaths, come to the toes, bend your knees, and jump or hop. Jump or step to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And now inhale, hands all the way up to the sky. And exhale, your hands to heart. Okay, we'll take a couple more rounds of that. So it's important here to match the inhales and exhales with the movement. So inhale, hands up and over. Exhale, swan dive down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, jump or step back to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog, and take those 5 breaths. Just checking in with your body to see what's going on today. How do you feel? Okay, after 5 breaths, come to the tops of your toes, bend your knees and jump or hop. Jump or step to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back. Exhale, nose to knee. Inhale, bring up all the energy up to the sky and bring it down to your heart. That's our second round. Here we go into our last round of sun salutation A. Sweep your hands up and over. Forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. In, exhale, downward facing dog. Once again, take your 5 breaths. Come to the toes and let's meet at the top in a forward fold. Halfway lift, exhale, nose to knee, and let's rise on up. Exhale, hands to heart. There we go. We did our 3 Surya Namaskar A sun salutations. Now let's go ahead and move on to sun salutation B. This one is a little more heat building. So inhale, hands up, dive on down. Ooh, I didn't start that right. Take 2. Okay, now we're going to come into a chair pose. And now, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, jump or step back into chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And now bring your foot between your hands. Inhale, warrior 1. Exhale, chaturanga. And what is this? Downward facing dog. Other leg, bring it forward, left leg down. Warrior 1 on the left side. Come back to our chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Now take 5 breaths. Whew. Now come to the balls of your feet and step or jump to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And inhale, back into chair. And exhale, hands to heart. All right. That one definitely builds a lot more heat. Let's do it again. So, inhale, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, jump or step back into chaturanga. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, down dog, bringing your right leg between your hands. Change your back heel. Come to warrior 1 and come back to chaturanga. In downward dog. This time left leg comes between your hands. Flip your right foot down and rise up to warrior 1. Exhale, back to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Take your 5 breaths. Use that ujjayi breath. Creating a restriction in the back of your throat. Some people say it sounds like the ocean. Now, come to the tiptoes and step or jump to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, nose to knee. Exhale. Sorry, that's exhale. Inhale, chair pose. And back to standing. Okay, we're gonna take 1 more round of sun salutation B. Okay, sweep your hands up and over. Come down to our forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Oh, I did that one wrong again. So take your hands up and over and bring your hands to heart center. Now let's take it into a chair pose. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, and exhale. See if you could challenge yourself here. Jump back into chaturanga, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog, bringing your right leg between your hands. Drop your left foot, come up into a warrior 1. Exhale, hands frame the foot, come back to a chaturanga. Upward facing dog and downward facing dog, sweeping your left leg up, bring it between your hands, drop your back foot, inhale, root to rise, and exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. Stay here for 5 breaths. Now come to the tops of your toes, bend your knees, and jump or step to the front of the mat. Put your nose to your knee and inhale, chair pose. Now exhale, standing, hands to heart. There we go, we made it through. That's really good. Well done. Okay, so now from here, I'm gonna keep my hands on my hips and we're gonna jump your feet to shoulder width distance. So I went a little farther, I'll bring it back. We're gonna come into Paragustasana. So we're gonna take our fingers, the index and middle finger around our toes, and we're gonna pull. And when we pull, we're gonna have our elbows come out to the sides instead of back, out to the sides, if you're there. Okay, so now with a flat back, go ahead and hinge at your hips, bringing yourself all the way down, and go ahead and grab your toes. If that's not really accessible to you, you can always use a block. You have your hands on blocks like this. The important part is to keep your back flat. So try to do that. And then gradually you can lower your block and lower your block until you could touch your toes. Now, if you could touch your toes pretty easily, wrap your fingers around your big toe and start to, I like to try to get my third eye to my thumbs. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So if that's you, try to follow suit. Otherwise, find what is beneficial to you, I guess, at home. But make sure your elbows are going outward. And you're trying to lay your whole belly on your thighs. You want to really deepen that crease. And actively pull with your arms. Use your arms to pull yourself down. And stay here. I think it's been about 5 breaths. I did a whole lot of yapping. So now let go. Put your hands on your hips and slowly flat back all the way up. Okay, so let that go. Shake it loose. Do what you gotta do. We're not going to be too strict on the rules here in my Ashtanga classes. At least for now. This is like a beginner entry and a gentle easing into Ashtanga. Okay. So now we're going to, once again, jump our feet out, hip, shoulder width distance. Okay, and now we're going to do Parahasta Gustasana. So we're going to take our hands and put them under our hands and put our hands under our feet and try to pull ourselves down. Okay, if that's not accessible to you, if your hamstrings are too tight or your back is too tight, go to where you were just in the previous position. Okay, so once again, we're going to go hinge at the hips, go as far as you can. Find your stopping point. If it's accessible, put your hands under your feet. Stay here for 5 breaths. And see, sorry, my hair got in my mouth. See if you can massage your wrists a little bit with your toes. That's where you want to be. Also, bend your shoulders. Actively pull. You could play like a little tug of war between stretching your back and your hamstrings. See who's winning, your hands or your feet. Okay. After 5 breaths, put your hands back on your hips and slowly rise on up. Come back to a standing Shavasana, bringing your feet together, and take in your practice. Now we're going to step our right leg back. We're going to pivot on our front heel so that our right foot is pointing towards the back edge of the mat. And we're going to bring our left foot into a 45-degree angle, trying to bring our hips into alignment. Square your hips. here we're going to come into a pyramid pose. So you could either grab your opposite elbows, or if reverse prayer is accessible to you, bring your hands into a reverse prayer and see if you could get your palms to touch the whole time. Do what you can. Come back into that stance, have your hands ready, and now with the flat back, energetically pulling through the top of your head as if someone's pulling a string, making you really, really tight. You're gonna come, hinge at your hips one more time into a pyramid pose. We're gonna stay here, we're gonna hover, using your core. And go down as much as you can keep your back flat or working towards it. Try your best. And stay here for 5 breaths. Trying to bring that right hip back and move your left hip forward. Okay, once you're done, slowly come back up. Pivot your feet and step your feet together into a standing shavasana. Shake it loose, let it go. Whatever you think about it doesn't matter anymore. My hair is all over the place, but I'm not gonna let that stop me. Okay, now let's go ahead and bring your hands to your hips and step your left leg back. Find your prayer position or opposite elbows and rotate your body to the back. So your left foot is pointing toward the back edge of your mat and your right leg is at a 45-degree angle. You could also widen your stance so that instead of being on a tightrope, say like a tightrope, you have more space between your feet. You see, so you could kind of move your feet out to the side if you need more stability. Okay, now tucking that left hip back and trying to push your right foot forward or right hip forward. Go ahead and hinge at the hips. We're first trying to find length all the way down. So we're not just dropping down, we're actively working the whole time. Okay, now once you're ready for that, slowly come back up, pivot so that you face the front and bring your feet together. Drop your hands and let it go. Now the next one is really easy. It's Uttanasana, which is just the forward fold that we do in the sun salutation. So let's go ahead and inhale your hands up to the sky and dive on down. Come all the way down with your nose to your knee. You can place the palms of your hands, try to place them beside your foot. Instead of in front, we usually go in front when we're trying to touch our toes. Bring them to the side. And see if when you tuck your toes, tuck your chin in, and put your nose towards your knees, see if you could also lift up through your tailbone, find length in your hamstrings. Kind of moving your weight towards the front of the feet. Use your breath. Okay, and once you're finished with that, find your halfway lift. So for some of us, it might be here. For others, whatever you do, don't put your hands on your knees. You want to protect your joints. So either put them on your thighs or on your shins or your ankles, whatever is accessible for you to keep a flat back. And stay here for 5 breaths. Make sure your shoulders are not crowding your ears. Make sure your knees are straight. And you're really trying to lengthen through your back and get this hinging motion really, really close. Okay, and once you're done, exhale, nose to knee. And now, bring your toes together, your big toes to touch. You could leave a little space between your heels. And bend your knees deeply, and then rise on up into a chair pose, holding it for 5 breaths. If it feels a little unstable, squeeze your thighs together. Really squeeze them so that it feels like you have one leg. And breathe. See if you can bring your body back and sit lower. This one is really hard for me. It's one I really got to work on. It's easy when you make the classes to forget about the ones that you don't like to do, but here I do try to be fair. Okay, and after 5 breaths, come back down into Uttanasana, bringing your nose to your knee. Inhale, halfway lift, and exhale, take a vinyasa flow. And we'll meet in not a down dog, but actually drop your knees and come on forward. Bring your legs out in front of you. Now we're gonna do like a reverse plank. So this is another one I really struggle with, but that's no reason not to do it. I'll show you my struggles also. Okay, so you're gonna put your hands behind you with your fingertips pointing towards the front edge of your mat. You could have them a bit behind your back, and then you're gonna point your toes. Yep, point your toesies, and then you're gonna lift your hips up. And that's where I really struggle. I have a hard time lifting my hips up. Even though my toes can touch the ground, I'm just gonna keep working that position for 5 breaths. I'm trying to engage my core, trying not to flare out my ribs, trying not to hyperextend my elbows. And after 5 breaths, come on back down. Ooh, sit on down, cross your legs, and try to jump back into a chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. Whew. Okay, now come on back down to your knees. And now, let's see, we're gonna come into Karmasana. This one is can be challenging. So I'm gonna face you guys so you can see me. You're gonna bring your feet out like this, kind of like a, I don't know, like a letter M. That's how I think of it. And you're gonna use your elbows to push your hips open. And you're gonna start to reach your hands under these little holes that you have in your legs. Now, if you feel that, you could hang out right here. But if you want to go a little further, there's 2 options. You can either walk your feet a little more forward and start to reach a little further with your hands, so you're getting closer and closer to the ground. You could hang out right here. And once you kind of get to where really you want the spread of your legs to be about the mat distance, not much further. You don't want it as wide, your legs open as wide as possible. You kind of want them more in line with the mat. So if that's just not really in your wheelhouse, go ahead and widen your legs. And if it is, you could join me right here. You can stop at any point. If you're still fine, start to walk your feet forward. And if you're still fine, you can continue walking your feet forward until you're all the way on the mat. Once you get on the mat, so I'm going to come out so I can demonstrate. You want to, your arm is here. You want to start to see if you could rotate it and bring it behind your back. So you want to try to get it as far back as you can. And eventually you want to try to find a bind with your hands. I'm not there, so I'm going to go to where my stopping point is. If you're there, that's really good. If you're almost there, it might be a good idea to use a strap. So let me go back to where I am, and I'm going to stay here for 5 breaths. And if you have your bind, you could start to walk your feet even closer together, because eventually you'll put them both behind your head. So I'm going to stay here because my hands really aren't anywhere near each other. And I'm just working on trying to get my feet closer and my legs completely flat. Because right now there's a bit of a bend. After 5 breaths, I think you may or may not have been here for the last 5 breaths. Slowly come out of that. Shake it off. Cross your legs. Roll forward and jump into a chaturanga. Ooh, that was sloppy. Upward facing dog and downward facing dog. Really good. Okay, now bring your knees back into the mat. Roll back, sit down. And now we're going to find a butterfly. Okay, so I like to use a block. I encourage you to only use a block if your legs are all the way open. If not, you could let gravity do most of the work. Okay, so in Baddha Konasana, I'm actually going to use the block to intensify my butterfly, because you can see when I put the soles of my feet together, my legs are all the way open. And there's nowhere for them to go. So I use a block under them so that I can create space and I can try to continue to open my hips. Okay, so also in this, I want to open my feet so that the bottoms are facing up to the sky, like you're opening a book. And with them as close to my groin as I can. I don't want them too far forward. I'm going to try to keep them out. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to round my spine, like I'm trying to get the crown of my head back into my birthing canal or back into my feet. So I want to round my spine as much as I can. Stay here for 5 breaths. And this whole time, you slowly come up. I'm trying to always think about, where do I feel tension? Where could I make a little space with my breath? So those are kind of what my thoughts are doing while I'm in that pose. Okay, now the second one, we're going to sit as straight as you can and tuck your chin. Try to press your knees down to the earth. Lift up through your whole spine, including your neck, and ground down. Try to make a flat spine with your shoulders up, back, and down. Stay here for 5 breaths. Okay. And once you're done with that, we're going to let it go. We're going to move on. So you could go ahead and take a vinyasa. Ooh. Okay, bring your hands or your knees down, and we're going to come into, I don't know, kind of like a pancake stretch. So just like we did in Kurmasana, we want to open our feet, but we don't want them as wide as they can go. Unless you're not very mobile here, then maybe it is as wide as you can go. It's just not much wider than the mat. Okay, and we're going to kind of pancake down and use the peace fingers to grab and wrap your big toe like this. Okay. And breathe here for 5 breaths, feeling the stretch on your hamstrings and your adductors with the D, no B. And try to get your chest and your forehead down to the mat. Also, actively pull. I was not doing that. Okay, and from here we're gonna, ideally you would do this all in one swoop. I'm gonna do it really clumsy, but I want to find a balancing position with my legs out like up. So spread your legs like this, find a balancing point, lift up, try not to round your spine, try to find length in your spine, and breathe here for 5 breaths. 3. And if you fall out, no worries, it's totally fine. And if you can also, once again, do it all in one swoop from the balance position, roll back over your back. Whew, I went too hard. Okay. And if you can, roll back forward and then back to the ground. Try your best. Try not to bend your legs in that process. If you do, it's okay. Okay. And from there, we're gonna shake your legs. We're almost done with our class. Can you believe it? It is kind of a shorter, easier class today. Okay. Now from here, I do have shoulders or headstand. So traditionally you would hold that for 25 breaths, and then you would hold the L headstand for another 10. So yeah, let's go ahead and give that a go. Okay. So you could do either tripod headstand if that's in your practice. If not, I'll go ahead and do the one that I'm more comfortable with, which is the other one. That's not tripod. So I'm gonna put my hands together and I'm gonna kind of cradle my head, the top of my head, with my forearms. You could use a lot of your weight in your forearms, and that does help to distribute your weight, so it's not so much pressure on your neck or your head. Ooh, it's getting cold out here. Okay. So with that, go ahead, put your hands down and put your head in between. Now you could start slowly. And if you fall out, it's not like the biggest deal. It won't be so painful, but try to make sure you keep a little tuck in your chin. So if you do find yourself going too far forward, tuck your chin to protect your neck. And also try not to bite your tongue if that happens too quickly. Okay? If that sounds really scary, then just first come to your knees, put your head down, tuck your back toes, and come into like a downward facing dog. So real quick, I want to share that the pressure point is not right in the middle of your head. It's kind of a bit back. So you want to find a point a little bit back. That's basically you're stacking your spine. And from here you could tuck one leg and the other, or you could try to tuck both legs. And if that's where you're at, go ahead and stay there. Otherwise, let's push ourselves a little bit more. We're gonna go from a tuck. You could lift one leg at a time or the other, or if it feels better to swoop up one leg and then swoop up the other, play with that. But yeah, this is kind of a playtime. So find your balance here, however you need. It's a windy day. You could swoop up one leg, swoop up the other. Whew. You could do one leg up, one leg tucked. Whew. Ooh. I don't know if we did enough core for that. Try not to come up too much. You might get a blood rush. So just chill. Yeah, if that happens. I want to keep trying, but I'm a little scared because it's so breezy. Oh, there's a squirrel. Okay. One thing that's really important is to make sure you always have control of your breath. So if you feel like you're out of breath, slow it down, pull back the pose a little bit because you don't want to be flailing. The last thing you want to do in headstand is to panic. So, okay, I'm going to try one more time and then we can move on. And if you want to keep trying, you can pause the video. Cool. Okay. I don't think it's going to happen for me today because the wind is a little bit chilly and it's kind of freaking me out. So let's move ahead. Ooh, I'm actually going to grab my sweater even. Okay. Okay, now moving on. Okay, so now we're going to come into Yoga Mudra. So with Yoga Mudra, we're going to come into a lotus pose. And you could just do a half lotus, or you could come into Sukhasana, depending on where you're at in your practice. I encourage you to try to do your lotus pose. So here I am in my lotus. And from here, you want to try to wrap your hand around and see where it reaches, and then wrap your other hand around. And maybe the idea is to eventually grab your toes, like to use this one to grab onto this toe, and this one grab onto the toe on this side. But I'm not there today. That's what we're working towards, though. So find your I called it Padmasana. It's not Padmasana yet. But find your pose. Grabbing opposite elbows or wherever. And start to hinge forward and fold forward I'll show you from the side, stay right there. So here I am. I'm also grabbing opposite elbows, which is still pretty difficult. I'm gonna try to keep my back flat as much as I could until it can't stay flat. And I'm gonna drop my head and just stay here for 5 breaths. After the 5 breaths, come on back up. Keep your lotus, don't change it. And find your mudra, this mudra, the okay mudra, and put it forward, tuck your chin, find length through the back of your spine, and stay here for 5 breaths. Also, I'm pulling in through my pelvic floor, so pull that up and in to help find length, and to help create space in your lower body. It seems simple, and it honestly is pretty simple. So just, I don't know, I guess just enjoy it. Okay, now after that 5 breaths, this next one, I have blocks because my ability to arm balance is not great. If you're able to, you could put your hand between your foot, this foot in this leg, and then this foot in this leg. Let me take off my watch and see if it's possible. I don't think it's quite possible for me yet, but I'm gonna try because some days I get surprised. So you kind of want your hands through your legs like that, and then eventually you would also press through and up. It's kind of cool that I could get my hands all the way through, which is still progress for me. My ankle's starting to get a little sore, but I'm just gonna redo my lotus, and then use your hands on either side of you with blocks or no blocks, and push up and try to lift your body up for 3. For 5 breaths. We'll do 5 breaths. It's supposed to be a lot more though, to be honest, but it is what it is. Ooh. Okay, ready? In 5. Okay. Now, really good job today, yogis. Now go ahead, find your final resting pose, your Shavasana. Lay down, relax all your muscles. I'm going to pretend to Shavasana with you, don't tell anyone, but I'm in a public setting and I don't want anything stolen. So, for that, Shavasana. Good night. slowly start to move your fingers and your toes. Take a full body stretch. And bring your knees to your chest. Rolling over to your right side. And taking a few moments to move slowly and mindfully. And when you're ready, meet me in Sukhasana. Thank you so much for joining my practice today. I hope to see you again soon. Namaste. Stay tuned for my other videos, my other styles of yoga. You can also join my Instagram, follow me on Instagram to join my asana challenge. I do an asana challenge every month where we just practice a single asana for the next 30 days, every day from 30 seconds to a minute, just steady, consistent practice, and we can witness each other's growth. I would love it if you shared your progress and send me videos or pictures for any kind of feedback that you might be wanting. And I try to post that every day on my feed. And yeah, if that's not interesting, you could also join my meditation or just simply continue supporting me through watching these yoga videos. So yeah, thank you for joining me. I will see you next time. Namaste. Bye-bye.